Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Taverns of Tiefenthal. So in the first video, I explained the basics of the first module of Taverns of Tiefenthal. In this one, I'm going to explain the extra add-on stuff for each module as we go through. I think theoretically, you're supposed to play these one after the other in order so you can get a feel for the whole game without being overwhelmed with rules. You could choose to go back onto one of the others, but I think you'll find that more often than not, you'll just play with all of the modules in because that makes a much larger, heftier game. So module 2 has a couple of changes. First off, we flip this board over, which introduces these three other types of entertainment. You will gain those when we start turn 2. Every person at the table will gain one of these. Notice there are little pictures of schnapps between some of these turns. So as I go from turn 1 into turn 2, each player would gain a schnapps. As I go from turn 2 to 3, each player would gain 2 schnapps. There's also a couple of spots on the monastery board that allow you to get extra schnapps. Now, when you take those tokens, you need to make a decision of which side you're going to use. So this side of this first one would cost 1 schnapps to get 2 money. This side would cost 2 schnapps to get 3 beer. So he might just from the outset decide to put that on that side, and let's just put that one on that side. Those tiles are now not going to change side. You can't decide to be on the other side. You're always going to be stuck with the side you're currently on. So now what happens, you play the game as normal, just with the addition of this schnapps, enabling you to get extra stuff. So when this guy gets up to doing the purchasing of guys, he go, oh, I want to spend 2 extra money. So spend the schnapps to get 2 more money to be able to get a higher end card into his deck. When we get to turn 3, obviously there's 2 more schnapps coming in. When we get to turn 3, with this one, he can spend 2 schnapps to totally remove one of the guys from the table. So that's worth getting rid of cards in that original deck. Or he could spend 5 schnapps to turn one of these over. Now, when that turns over with this guy, you do not get a noble card. So he might put that down there. So at any point he can spend 2 to get rid of one of the tables that's actually come in. And that will only happen during the serving phase. So once you've put all the tables out and you've chosen which dice you're going to use, you could then get rid of a guy altogether. And the last one that's different that comes in on round 5 is this guy. This allows him to spend a schnapps to be able to turn one of the dice to whichever side he wishes, and he'll do that before placing it onto the empty space, not while he's selecting it. And the other side of that tile allows him to place one of the cards that would be discarded back into the draw pile. So if you had a really high card here, you might want to put it back over there instead of actually discarding it. Notice that this one can happen as many times as you wish in the same turn. This one can only happen once. And that's pretty much the only differences with module 2. So let's move on to module 3. This deck is added, which pushes you around the reputation track. There's a pile of cards which get shuffled into those cards. Anything with that little white square on the top, and they will give you schnapps or other benefits that come along with this particular version. So if you have this in your deck and he comes out, that will push you one further around this reputation track. Whenever you cross over a symbol of something, so say schnapps, you would gain a schnapps. Here, you either gain a schnapps or you remove one of the cards from your tavern. And when it gets up to 9, you gain one of the nobles, and then it just starts again. At the end of the game, you'll gain whatever points are underneath your marker. If it's sitting on one of the pictures, then you gain the points of the number before where you're up to. And that is all of the changes for module 3. So moving straight into module 4. Module 4 introduces these cards. What will happen at the beginning of the game, you'll put 3 of these out, so they're chosen randomly, and each player will choose one of those 3 things as their setup. This is instead of having one of these cards, these cards, and these cards in this deck to start with. So he might choose to turn over this tile or this tile or this tile. If he chose to turn over this one, which is that one, he doesn't get the noble, by the way, for doing this turn. So that turns over to the 3 side. Get rid of one of the cards and add one of these cards to the deck. There are a number of those cards. I'll allow you to look up what each of them means as they come out, because each game will be slightly different with that. And that is all that comes in with Module 4. And then we get to Module 5. And what happens with these, when you get a guest come in, you will put a marker or a signature onto the top spot of whatever that guest is worth. So if you brought this guest in, he'll get the stuff on the card. He's number 5, so he would get a signature just there. When you cover up an icon, you get the benefit of that icon. So the next number 5 that he takes, he would move that around 1. The next number 5 that he takes, he would gain one of these cards into his deck. And once you've got 3 signatures, you then cover that up and take the noble. Always putting them onto the draw deck, not the discard. I may have forgotten to mention earlier, once your draw deck runs out, shuffle your discard and keep going from with that as the new draw deck. I think every marking on here is stuff that we've covered before. This one is move that forward 3 spots instead of 1, because there's a little number 3 on it. Once you've filled up a line, that doesn't mean you can't get guests in with the number 5 value. It just means they're not going to add anything to that board. And that is all of the changes for all of the modules. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.